Hello and welcome to the Maths Matrix. My name's Rebecca and in today's video we're going to be doing subtracting. In the last video we did adding and today we'll be doing the opposite, which is subtracting. Just like with addition, being able to do subtraction on its own is not going to gain you any marks in a non-calculator paper, but if you can't do it, it stands to cost you a lot of marks, so it is important that you can do it. For this lesson, all you'll be needing is paper and a pen, and the only prerequisite knowledge you'll need is that you know how to subtract single-digit numbers from each other. So, for example, you know that 9 take away 3 is 6, or you know that 7 take away 3 is 4. So that's the only prerequisite knowledge that you'll need. As I said in the addition video, you are never too old or too good to count on your fingers. So if you don't instantly know what 9 take 3 is, or you don't instantly know what 7 take 4 is, don't worry about it. Just use your fingers to count down. That's absolutely fine. Like in the last video, I'm going to pop on screen a list of questions. If you look at those questions and think, yeah, I know how to do those, that's fine. Just skip this video, you don't need to watch it, you can just move straight on to the next one. If there's questions there where you think, oh actually, I don't think I'd know how to do that, particularly if you don't know how to borrow one or work with decimals, then stick with the video and I'll go through that. So here are the questions now. Okay, if you're still watching, I'm assuming that there were some of those questions that you wouldn't be sure how to do. So let's have a look at how we subtract. So if we had 785 and we wanted to subtract from that 263, then we would set it up like that. And again, you'll notice that my columns are nice and neat. Everything is either in one column or in another column. I don't have anything squished between columns, so nice, neat columns is what you want. So if you copy that down, and then just like with addition, we start over on the right-hand side. So I'm going to say 5 take away 3 is 2. And remember, if you don't know, then you'll start with 5 and you'll take off 4, 3 and 2 like that. 8 take away 6 is also 2 and 7 take away 2 is 5. So the answer to that one is 522. If we do another one, so let's have 579 take away 156. Then we would say 9 take away 6 is 3. 7 take away 5 is 2. And 5 take away 1 is 4. So the answer to that one would be 423. So if you have a go at 947, take 215. And if you have a go at, let's have 861, take away 500 and just 500. Okay, so if you hit pause, have a go at those, and then I'll go through them. Okay, so 7 take 5 is 2, 4 take 1 is 3, and 9 take 2 is 7. And then we have 1 take 0 is still 1, 6 take 0 is still 6, and 8 take 5 is 3. So 361. That's easy enough to do in your head actually, I know. But I like to include some examples with zeros in because no two numbers cause as much confusion in maths as 0 and 1. People get very confused about 0 and 1. Right, so in all of those cases, the bottom number has been smaller than the top number. So we've been able to do an easy takeaway and just fill numbers directly in underneath. Now let's have a look at what happens if that's not the case. So sometimes what we have to do is borrow from another column. Quite little. Can't turn these pages very easily. Right. So if we had, let's say, 654 take away 327. Okay. So again, we start on the right and we would say 4 take away 7. Now 4 take away 7, it's actually -3, but in these kind of questions, we don't have negative numbers. So if the bottom number is bigger than the top one, we just say can't do. So we say 4 take away 7, can't do. So what we do now is we borrow 1 from this 5. So what we do is we cross that 5 out, and if we're borrowing 1 from it, then instead of 5, there's now only 4 left in that column. And the one that we've borrowed, we write there in front of the 4. So we said 4 take away 7 can't do. So we need to borrow 1 from the 5, which makes that a 4. And the one that we borrow, we put in front of the 4 there. So now what we have is 14 take away 7, which is 7. And then we have 4 take away 2, which is 2. So we now have a 4 in that column. We say 4 take away 2. We ignore that crossed out 5 now. And then we say 6 take away 3 is 3. So the answer to that one is 327. Okay? So let's look at another one. Let's have 732 take 458. So you copy that one down. And then like before, we'll start on the right and we'll say 2 take away 8, can't do. So because we can't do 2 take away 8, we're going to borrow 1 from the 3, which makes that into a 2. And the one that we've borrowed, we put there. So we said 2 take away 8 can't do. So we borrow 1 from the 3 and give it to the 2, which makes that now look like 12. And we say 12 take away 8 is 4. Then we say 2 take away 5. But again, we can't do it. So we say 2 take away 5, can't do. So we need to borrow again this time from the next column along. So we're going to cross out that 7 and change it into a 6 because we're borrowing 1 from it, which we're going to write there. So we said 3 take away 5, can't do. So we go to the next column and borrow 1, which knocks that number down by 1. And the one that we borrow, we put there in front of that 2. So what we now have is 12 take away 5. So the 1 and 2 join together to make a 12. And we say 12 take away 5 is 7. And 6 take away 4 is 2. Okay? I'm going to show you one more like that because if you haven't done a lot of that before, I realise it might be a bit complicated. So let's have 564 minus 176. Okay. So we'd say 4 take away 6, can't do. So we borrow 1 from the next column along. So we cross the 6 out and make it a 5. And the one that we borrowed, we put there. And then we can say 14 take away 6 is 8. Then we move to the next column and we say 5 take away 7, can't do. So we borrow 1 from the next column along and give it to that column there. So now we have 15 take away 7, which is 8. And then moving to this column, we have 4 take away 1, which is 3. So the answer to that one is 388. So if you now have a go at, I'm going to write them quite small. I'm going to give you 2 and try and squidge them both in. So we'll have 934 take 569. And then I'm hoping you'll be able to see this bottom one. We'll have 615 take 276. So if you copy those down, hit pause, try them, and then I'll go through them with you, okay? Okay, so let's go through those. So we have 4 take away 9, can't do. So we borrow 1 from the 3, which makes that into 14, giving it the one that we borrowed. So 14 take away 9 is 5. Then we say 2 take away 6, can't do. So we borrow again from the next column, which turns the 9 into an 8, and we give the one that we borrowed there, which makes that look like a 12. So now we say 12 take away 6 is 6, and 8 take away 5 is 3. So 365 for that one. And then the next one, 5 take away 6 can't do. So we cross out that 1 and change it into a 0. So 0 is a perfectly respectable mathematical number, so we can change that into a 0 and then give the 1 to the 5 to make 15. So 15 take 6 is 9. And then we have 0 take 7, which can't do. So we cross out the 6, change it into a 5, and give the 1 that we borrowed to that 0, which makes it look like 10. So if I go back, we said 0 take 7 can't do. So we borrowed from the 6 to make 5, gave the 1 to the 0, so now it looks like 10. So we say 10 take away 7 is 3, and 5 take away 2 is also 3. So we get 339. Now, where possible, you always borrow from the next door column, but sometimes the next door column hasn't got anything to give, and then you end up doing a sort of double borrow. So let's have a look at one like that. So if we have 803 take away 277, if you copy that one down, and then what we're going to do is start at the right again and say 3 take 7 can't do. Now normally we would borrow from this column, but this column doesn't have anything to give because it's 0, so it doesn't have a spare one. It's already kind of empty. Oh, the phone's going. Just let me wait until the phone's finished ringing. I don't know if you're picking it up or not on the sound, but it's distracting me for sure. Okay. So we say 3 take away 7 can't do, and normally we'd borrow from here, but this one is already 0, so it's not got anything that we can borrow. So in this case, what we have to do is borrow from this column, so we cross that out and make it a 7. But the one that we've borrowed can't jump across 2 columns like that. It can't go all the way from there to there. So we've crossed the 8 out and made it a 7, and that column can only give to that one there, which now makes that 10. And now that that's 10, it does have one that it can lend, so we can cross that out and make it 9 and give one to that column, which I know looks a little messy. And we say 13 take away 7 is 6. And then this column now is 9 because we've crossed out the 0 and we've effectively crossed out the 10 as well. So 9 take away 7 is 2. And 7 take away 2 is 5. So the overall answer is 526. If I show you another one like that, if we have, let's have 506 take 189. So we would say 6 take away 9 can't do, but this one hasn't got one to lend. So we have to cross out the 5 and change it to a 4. But we can't lend from this column all the way to that column. We can only lend to the next door column. So now that becomes a 10. Then now it does have one that it can lend to the 6. So we cross the 10 out and make it 9 and lend one to the 6. So finally now we can do 16 take away 9, which is 7. We can do 9 take away 8, which is 1. And we can do 4 take away 1, which is 3. Okay. So if you have a go at 702 take 326. So if you hit pause, have a go at that, and then I'll go through it with you. All right, so 2 take 6 can't do. That column hasn't got one to lend. So we go to the next column along, change the 7 to a 6 and lend the 1 to the 0. Then we cross out what is now 10, replace it with 9 and lend 1 to the 2, which makes that 12. So 12 take 6 is 6, 9 take 2 is 7, and 6 take 3 is 3. So the overall answer is 376. Okay. Finally, we need to be able to subtract with decimals as well. And that's very similar to adding with decimals. So if we wanted to do £8.43 take away £2.65, then we would set them up one on top of another, decimal point going directly under decimal point and everything else fitting in around that. So you copy that one down. And then we would say 3 take away 5 can't do. So we'll cross out the 4 and change it to a 3. And we'll put a 1 in front of the 3 to make it 13. And then we have 13 take 5 makes 8. And then we have 3 take away 6, can't do. So cross out the 8 and change it to a 7. And lend 1 to the 3 to make it 13. And then 13 take away 6 is 7. Fill in the decimal point directly under the other decimal points. And 7 take 2 is 5. And as the question was given in currency, the answer must be given in currency as well. So £5.78. Just like before, if we have different numbers of decimal places going on, let's say we have 27.4 take away 8.65. We could write one on top of another, so 27.4, but decimal point must go directly under decimal point, which means that the 8 goes under the 7, the 6 goes under the 4, and the 5 goes in a column of its own. So above the 5, we'll just put a 0 so that we can say 0 take 5 can't do. So we'll borrow from the 4 to make it 3 and pop a 1 there to make that 10. So 10 take 5 is 5. Then we say 3 take away 6 can't do. So we'll cross out the 7 and change it to a 6. And we'll put a 1 there to make that 13. And then we'll say 13 take away 6 is 7. Fill in the decimal point directly below the decimal point. 6 take away 8 can't do. So cross out the 2 and change it to a 1. And lend 1 to the 6 to make it 16. 16 take away 8 is 8. And then 1 take away, there's nothing in that column, so 1 take away 0 is 1. So overall, the answer to that one is 18.75. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is pop those original questions back on the screen, and hopefully now you'll be able to do them. As I said with addition, it will be quite slow and clunky to start with. So once you've got addition mastered and you're quite smooth at being able to add numbers without a calculator, then move on to practicing subtraction. And just like with addition, rather than sit for one mammoth session doing lots and lots of them, just set yourself between 5 or 10 at a time and write them in columns like that, have a go at doing them, and then check them on a calculator. And probably do that 3 or 4 times a week for 2 or 3 weeks, and that should smooth it all out and mean that you know what to do with it. All you have to remember is that you need to be taking a smaller number from a big one. So if you were to start with 426, what you subtract has to be less than 426 to be able to do this style of subtraction. So negative numbers don't apply here. So just make sure that whatever goes here is smaller than what went there. And then you can just set your own up. So just think of 2 numbers, subtract them, check them on your calculator or your phone, and very soon you should start to find that you're getting them right most of the time. So here are those questions again, and see you next time. Thank you.